So, welcome back, everybody, to Boondogglers episode 2. Last time was super duper fun. You guys were awesome. We got like 60 views in the first 2 days or something. Very exciting. Tarpit and I are learning a lot and having a lot of fun. Every Monday, we're going to be doing this, or maybe even twice a week, we were talking about earlier. But yeah, episode 2. How's it going, Tarpit?
Going good. How's your week been?
It's been pretty exciting. Getting a lot of work done for my next big project, and yeah, pretty much that's all.
That vehicle you sent over looks amazing. You know, before we get started,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I need clarity on.
Yeah.
When you showed me the nodes of your brick wall like months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and you explained that, for example, the like indentation pattern in between the bricks, that was 4 nodes put together, and then there were nodes
Yeah.
affecting color and texture and all that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. It's kind of like a streamlined, like pure math procedural
Yep.
situation. I don't understand how that system could generate you a human object like a chain or the Oriental rug in your new video.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like a brick wall seems like this kind of basic material. I can kind of imagine that, but when we're crafting like consumer looking objects, I actually don't get it.
So this is what I did. Well, okay. So the brick wall is basically what I do is it's just like a flat plane of a brick wall, a picture of a brick wall that I've edited and made look nicer. And then the nodes that you're talking about take all of the dark, basically like the in-betweens of the shadows of the bricks that is from the photo. It takes that dark color and it turns it into a displacement map. And then I can say, okay, all that dark, I'm going to use that to displace it back, and it will just like automatically, super fast. It's not like hard on the computer at all. It barely even notices it, because it's not actually modeled. It's just like, I don't know, node based. It's a displacement map is basically what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was that setup.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. I think I didn't fully grasp that there is a photo at the root of the wall.
Yeah, it's all, they're basically all photos that I put in the GIMP and just make fancy. Like if there's a wall I want graffiti on it, I'll put graffiti, I'll put drips, I'll do all that stuff, darken it, sharpen it, all in GIMP, put it in the Blender, then do a whole new set of like nodes, shading, modeling, and then you have a wall.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this week, what I want to ask you about, and I should have had a way more bitchin' opening question pre-scripted, but the topic is consciousness. And my first question for you, I guess, would just be, I mean, it's kind of impossibly hard, but would just be kind of, what's your gut level description of what consciousness is? And I'll just take a second and define my terms a little bit more. It seems like inside of people, there's this light on.
Mm-hmm.
And when your brain wakes from sleep, and you look around at your room, there's a process happening where your senses are modeling that place you're in, that whole day, that day in your life.
Right. What separates dream world from real world?
Or how do you see that process? How do you see that process happening? And I'll start to make it a little easier on you.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a system that evolved inside of primates that kept them alive. And I kind of take a leap of faith that system does an okay job of describing nature to, myself, the inner kind of like witness to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been struggling lately because I don't think I can ground that. It feels like faith to me, basically. It feels like I can't argue and prove to you that our logic is accurate. I can only tell you that it feels like it happens and things appear obvious. So I don't know. I guess I don't have a good answer either, but I kind of wanted to probe your mind and see what your gut level instincts are about what those processes are, and kind of how would you describe, the fact that we're modeling nature. One way to look at it would be like a robot that's playing like a 2D snake game, but that snake game you programmed it with is good enough for it to like find outlets and plug itself in. Or another way to say it would be that like, our mind is the mind of God, and whatever created the universe is the same intelligence that we're like participating in.
Right. So I think it works because we've had so much time to evolve that it makes the most sense that we would repeat what we see. I mean, that's literally what humans do. We are creatures of repetition. So I think that if you take that to the most extreme form, everything we do is just us repeating what we see in the world. And then things repeat what we're repeating, and eventually it's just kind of a flow of, we're just kind of in line with nature because we're just so used to it. We've been evolved to repeat everything that we see.
Maybe another word for repeat, just so I understand. Do you mean maybe like mimic?
Mimic, yeah.
As another way of saying the same thing.
Right.
So that basically makes it sound like because our consciousness works well enough to keep us alive, that itself is evidence for it mapping nature.
Mm-hmm.
And not just being totally disconnected from nature.
Yeah. I just think, well, I mean, because trying to answer what you think consciousness is like trying to figure out if we have a soul, or figure out if if you can transplant the brain frickin' into another organism, and then you like if let's say that you took my mind, put it in another person, would I then know that I'm in that other person? Or would that other person then operate with my mind? Or what makes it how do you know that you're you? I think about that all the time, and it's like the most difficult, thing to think about, because what kind of studies can we look at? I mean, no one has been able to transplant a mind yet, I don't think.
Right. So this is a crazy time to be asking this question, because we're coming up into a century where there's a chance that some of these questions might actually be answered.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like as like computational science evolves, there does seem to be kind of like two basic camps forming. And one side is basically saying that consciousness will never understand itself. And the other side is basically saying it's a computation.
Yeah.
And once we run as many bits as our brain is running, then that will be awake too.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, there's a really good chance that in this century, if it's the latter, it'll get answered. And if it's the former, it won't. But that's at least a 50% chance of it getting answered. Yeah. So, like, if you believe that consciousness is, like, stuck in the mud, like, we will never model ourselves accurately, kind of as, like, a physics necessity or, like, a physics limit, that the brain just cannot do that, then we won't have any answers ever.
Right.
But we might be like building and booting up some brains in the 2040s, 2050s that give us a chance to actually get into the nitty gritty. So what do you think? Yeah. Do you think you can be described as a computation? Or do you think that there's some dimension we're not grasping in our models yet?
I think that, well, I do think, first of all, I think the mind can be separated from the body. I think it absolutely can, because it's frickin' electricity. and neurons, and that's, whatever. I also think that we will probably see that in the next 100 years. I think we will. Just looking at the last 100 years and how far we've come, projecting into the next 100, I mean, it's obvious to me. Thirdly, I think a lot of people are scared of the idea of the mind being separated from the body. And, because first of all, like, let's say, oh, well, what if someone does it to me? I'm through a scientific experiment. Would I lose myself? Would I not be able to, know that I'm being translated? But on a more real note, like, I think that no matter what makes up what it is or what form you take, like, if my mind was transplanted to a robot, it really wouldn't be any different from what we are now. I think that things, it's kind of, I'm not scared of it. I used to be scared of it. I'm not scared of it anymore.
Do you mean maybe scared of going through that process, or do you mean like existentially
not really
scared that humans are doing that?
Yeah. I used to be scared that humans are doing it, or that it was possible, or just scared of the idea that consciousness is, can be separated or whatever. But and recently I've thought that the last 3 years, but also recently I've really gone through a thing where I'm just realizing how simple things are and what kind of things really matter, and it wouldn't matter what your form is, or how you were made or whatever. The world is still going to be, the same things are still going to matter, and they've kind of just been the same for thousands of years. Love is the same love, hate is the same hate. The material objects, of course, change, and even, I've said the word form a million times, but if your form changes, if your body changes, wherever you are, I think things just, I think things are the same. Kind of hard to explain, but that's just where I have it in my mind.
No, that makes sense. Maybe just to try to paraphrase what you said, is it fair to say that, like, the picture in reality changes, but as a conscious being, my relationship to reality doesn't change?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is quite fair. I think when you say that you think the mind can be taken from the body, that's basically a yes, that it's a computation. Maybe it's a more advanced computation than
Explain what you mean by computation, just for me.
Well, I mean, basically that the sum information processing of all that electrical and maybe kind of like chemical exchange has an emergent property that is you, and
right.
And it can be separated from the body. I mean, that's like basically one of the cleanest ways of saying it.
Yeah. Okay, that's
that would basically imply that if we atom for atom reproduced you with like a futuristic 3D printer and like put a 9-volt battery on its tongue, it would wake up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I think that there's a decent chance that our intelligence is a function of the matter in our brains. Jelly, do you have to go?
The alarm clock.
Okay, Jelly, leave, please. Go out.
I don't blame her. There's a clown out there. What's going on out there?
Some food is getting sold door to door. I'll give her a chance.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if okay, so the way you described it, sure, I don't know if it would like wake up and then like, okay, this is the way I'm thinking of it. Let's say, can you transfer memory? Because I think there is a difference between transferring memory, transferring habit, versus transferring mind. I think there is a difference, because I think if you were to like somehow replicate my exact brain and stick it in a robot, and then it were to wake up, I don't know that it would automatically have all my same memories. But I mean, honestly, maybe it would, because all that is just electrons bouncing around and neurons, and I mean, it's all physical, you know. And if that was copied exactly, then it would. Assuming that's possible. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just...
Yeah. Okay, so let me set up another question that I think kind of speaks to what you've been talking about. Let's say there's that you have the opportunity to get downloaded into a meat puppet. We grew the meat puppet from your stem cells, but we cybernetically enhanced it the whole time. We turned off aging, you know, yada, yada, yada. And we know from experience that we are programming it with your memories and cloning everything about your reactions, your traits, your instincts.
Exactly
And
me.
It is you. And you will go to sleep and the meat puppet will wake up.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between that and going to sleep and waking up in the morning?
I don't think there is. I don't think that there is. That kind of is what plays into why I'm not scared of it, because I really don't think there is. I think I would wait. Like I said, you know, the materialistic world changes every second, all the time. It's always changing. And you can look at that and be scared of that, but that stuff really doesn't matter. If I were to wake up in that other form with my exact mind, I mean, of course I would be like freaking hyped and it would be insane. But really, if you were to break that down in the most simple form, it would still be the exact same. I would still think the same. I would still have the same experiences, like the same things. And yeah, I don't think that there would be, I don't think that there's really a difference.
Would there be a transfer of the you, of the inner you? That's kind of a question. I guess here's my thing. I think people are
You're asking scientifically, do you think that that's possible?
Well, I'm asking kind of experientially, basically, because when we wake up in the morning, we remember yesterday, and we feel continuity. Mm-hmm. But if an alien swapped me with a perfect meat puppet in the night, the meat puppet would wake up and have the same memories and feel like it was me and just carry on.
Right.
So I tend to think that we're either way too freaked out about death or not nearly freaked out enough about sleep. I mean, every one of us should be up at like 2 a.m. just being like, I don't want to lose today's me. You know what I mean? I don't want that freaking like tomorrow me to wake up and think it's fucking tar pit.
My
you know
tomorrow me will be screwed up if I do not sleep. So I kind of have to. But
That's funny. That's funny. That's good.
I will lose tomorrow's me if I don't lose today's me.
But to me, that question kind of gets back to my first question to you of like, is there a transcendent us, or are we simply, you know, an emergent data pattern? Because I think that's what science can't answer yet, is kind of the difference between the you that goes to sleep and the you that wakes up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, someone might say dreams and like subconscious processes, but I will say that, you know, the me that's sitting here in my own mind listening to myself talk in real time goes all the way to sleep and wakes all the way up. And if you swapped it, you know, I don't know. I think there's not much that actually tethers us kind of moment to moment.
Yeah. That is interesting.
One of my favorite.
Go ahead.
Okay.
One
of my favorite
all right.
descriptions of what a person is I ever heard is from this psychopath named Ray Kurzweil, who's an inventor and He has some good ideas and some crazy
Actual
ideas.
psychopath?
No, he just has some good ideas and some really cringe ideas.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Okay.
He basically says the best way to think about what is a person, and kind of therefore his answer to the soul question, is like this. If you're looking at a stream and there's rocks blocking the flow, and the water goes around the rocks, the way the water goes around the rocks forms a pattern. It forms kind of some shapes. Those shapes are there because you can see them, and tomorrow it'll mostly be the same shape. Maybe rocks roll over time and the pattern shifts, but that pattern is somewhat reliable and predictable. At the same time, it is not a thing with limits, with boundaries. You can't take that pattern and surgically remove it from the river and have it. It's more a predictable set of predictions that turns out kind of well. Mm-hmm. And he says that's what a person is.
Yeah.
You are not there per se. Your lungs are in chemical exchange with the air around you. You're shedding skin cells, and those cells are being eaten by the microbiome constantly. There are not really lines that you can draw between yourself and nature, but basically like the dust swirls in a predictable pattern for a certain amount of time, and that's a person. So it's more like you can see a pattern and it's worth pretending that it's a thing. Mm-hmm. But you can also zoom out and realize that it is not actually there per se. And I think a soul is this kind of older concept of explaining how are we there. It's like, your lungs are in exchange with the air that came from China, but there's this other dimension where you're like a nice sealed up package that's separate from nature, and that's what carries on after you die. But I don't know. I think to me it's almost more magical that our consciousness comes directly from the physics of the matter that is us. Mm-hmm. Which means there is no difference at all between us and nature, and there is no like extra dimension that our soul expands into.
Totally, yeah.
I think there are like atheists who don't believe in a soul, who have like a very boring kind of dead mechanical version of the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm an atheist who doesn't believe in the soul, who feels like that's like sacred and like super magical, maybe more so than a god where you offload all the magic into like one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, and I'm going to repeat myself here, but I think the reason why we're so one with nature is because, once again, we're creatures of habit and repetition, and we've been doing that for so long. We just we've evolved to survive by repeating what we see, by creating habits of what we see in the world. So we've actually, that has me thinking, was there a time, because where if I kind of expand what I'm saying, I was about to say, over time we've repeated nature so much that we've become one with nature. But if you take that back, that's assuming that there was a time where we weren't one with nature.
Right.
If you go backwards.
Totally.
So was there a time when we weren't one with nature, or like the very first creature that we evolved from, was that immediately with nature? Like, was the very first thing, I mean, this is kind of a stupid question, but was the very first thing that anything did was repeat what it saw? Right. Because then that makes sense.
I mean, look, I think that if you believe in creationism, then it's kind of worth saying that the second something was alive, it like jumped into a whole new category and divorced itself from nature. I think if you believe that life is this like accident of chemistry that happened once then you can also, it's also worth saying, like, there's the universe and then there's life, and like they're not playing by the same rules. But I don't think so. My guess is that life is everywhere. My guess is that if you take the universe and you shake it, organic chemistry will begin self-organizing. And one thing I really like about your idea, which is something kind of I've been thinking about this week, is basically if you imagine, if let's just take for granted that there are many, many intelligent technological civilizations out there, or even let's just say many, many intelligent beings out there off planet, the question kind of arises, is logic constant? I mean, that's kind of like my original idea, my question for you about like how good is this like model inside of a primate that we're all navigating the universe with. So if there's civilizations on civilizations out there, are we all generally discovering parallel mathematics as we go? Are we all generally, moving through, related technological trees? Or is it, well, sorry, let me finish. Or is it, stupid to even imagine that, because the possibilities are so endless that even types of logic, types of maths, whole ways to approach technology are so divergent that we wouldn't even recognize them. I tend to really hope that it's the same intelligence, and that generally speaking, logic and math are, what happens when the universe becomes conscious of itself, not like a random mutation we developed that works well enough.
Right.
And what you were saying makes that true, because it sounds to me like what you were saying is that mapping nature works. It worked well enough to keep us alive. And so It's worth assuming that we are doing that decently, as opposed to just thinking, well, we're just playing this game that was designed for us by evolution and it could bear no resemblance to the universe.
Yeah, so going back to your first question, I think that logic is relative to whatever environment that you're in. And I think that you could say that our logic is different from some sort of extraterrestrial being's logic, because we're in a different environment than it is, because we're on Earth and it's not on Earth. But I don't think that that's... I think that... I mean, who really knows? I'm just speaking from what I think, but... I think that, the environment that we live in is bigger than just our planet. I think that the environment... I think the planet is within the environment that other logic follows. I think that logic follows an environment that is the universe.
Sure.
So I feel stupid saying, yeah, it is like this, because once again, who freaking knows? But I think that maybe, aliens would have the same logic, path that we are on. Maybe they're further behind or above or branched out somewhere, but it's within the same tree. So yeah, using your words, I think so.
Yeah, I like it. And I'll say this too, because there seems to be two camps out there too, of like, life might look a lot like us, and it might all look a lot like us, versus folks who are like, oh, you have no idea. It might be in stars. It might be, living in rocks, or made out of, metabolizing rocks over millions of years to stay alive and stuff like that. And I think that probably what I would put my money on is that you've heard of like the Goldilocks zone.
Nope.
It's a zone not too close and not too far from a star where liquid can be water on the surface of a planet. So my guess is that what we're talking about, like recognizable technological civilizations that we might commune with one day, I feel like I think there's probably a bell curve of evolution in Goldilocks zone planets. Like, I think, like what you were saying, like, that there are some kind of environmental constants that have to do with being in the universe and not just being on our planet. That a lot of that is because once your planet is a certain distance from the sun and you start getting liquid water, you start to see life, and there's, if not a related tree of life on that planet, a tree that's kind of getting subject to the same pressures as ours are on Earth.
Yeah.
And then that there may be also other categories of stuff that is in stars, that is in between planets that we can't really fathom, but that there probably is this like Goldilocks zone population of folks that live on planets kind of like us.
Yeah.
So then let me bring it back again. If there are an abundance of intelligent and technological civilizations in the universe, does that change the question of what is consciousness or not?
Well,
like, does it imply that consciousness is a natural part of evolution, a natural part of biology, a natural part of physics? Or are all those questions the same if we're alone?
yeah. No, I don't think it changes. I don't think it would change it. Because once again, it goes back to what I was saying about the environments is, you may look at something that lives a billion light years away, it's not on Earth, as being so different from you. But I think that planets don't define, planets don't, I don't even know the word for it because it's so abstract, but planets don't define our world, I guess. Planets don't define our world.
Or context, maybe.
Right, yeah. Because there may be a day where, humans aren't even on Earth anymore. We're on another planet. Well, we're still humans. We still use the same consciousness. We're not on Earth anymore. Therefore, we kind of separate Earth from humans. And if you separate Earth from humans, then what's the difference between separating humans from, some other colony planet that some other aliens live on? We're really just, we're far away, but we're really just kind of neighbors. If you think about it, we're all kind of on the same planet. But man, that would be crazy if we're the only life form. I don't think it would change the question, though. It's just I still think that it would be the same thing, but yeah, that would just be. I think there's no way that we're the only life form. There's just no way. What if other life forms didn't have consciousness? They had just had something that was so different from what we know as consciousness that we can't even comprehend their existence. Would it still be consciousness? Would it still be the same? Would we still be in the same?
Right.
But I'm leaning towards yes. Things are more similar. Everything is more similar than a lot of people think. I think that we do live in the same. We do share the same world that other life forms do.
Like in that Museum of Alien Life video, they talk about basically, is it the greatest hits of evolution on repeat everywhere? So like eyes, like just everywhere. Like if you start evolving, you'll get eyes, and they'll kind of be round, and they might be at the top of your body. Like this is just happening, like because it works really well.
Yeah.
There is something about that I like. I wouldn't even be surprised if like bipedal movement, folks standing up and freeing up extra limbs once they stood up.
Yeah.
Is kind of something that you see again and again, or I don't know.
Because you could imagine another planet looking a lot like Earth, and once again we evolve to our environment. Our logic is based off of our environment. So if there's another planet that looks similar to Earth, then why wouldn't it evolve similarly? Yeah, 2 legs, eyes. Yeah, totally.
For example, you can't make fire underwater.
Right.
So, You know, it might
Totally.
be
Yeah,
that-
yeah, yeah.
Like we ran this sim here on Earth for a long time before we got people, and then once we did, it was just broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of
Interesting stuff.
One thing I'm wondering is if we were able to get out there, if what we would see is just mechanical and basically artificial life everywhere, like kind of an extended realization from the concept that it's the same tree of evolution kind of getting pressured by the same forces to a degree everywhere. Is that once you get life, you will get intelligence. Once you get intelligence, you will get technology. And once you get technology, you will get AIs that dominate that biosphere. And it is basically the technological form of life that is able to send itself between planets, that is able to truly colonize space. And so that's what you see everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that, repeating what you said, if that is what we saw everywhere, that would confirm our idea that evolution is a constant. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of interesting. You know, another thing I was thinking is, let's say in the future we do have like generational crafts, which would mean like we're sending a bunch of people who are like asleep to another star system. They're going to wake up in 800 years, you know, when the robots wake them up, and they're going to start a colony on this planet, and we'll all be dead, and our grandkids will be dead before they even wake up to start. That's kind of like the species level equivalent of the going to sleep and waking up the clone of you question. Mm-hmm. It's like we're being like, nobody who's investing in this project is going to benefit from it or even be aware of it, but we just trust that it will be people that wake up. So we trust that it'll be humanity that forms this colony, and we like feel some connection to them, the same way you feel a connection to yourself in the future. There's no line you can even draw to map out that connection, but it's like it's kind of like a faith that we have that this thing that will act like us and react like us is kind of in the family.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that going to sleep for 24 hours and going to sleep for 240,000 hours is any different. Or 240 million hours. I think you would still wake up, the same.
Yeah. So what do you think? You think we're gonna do this? You think we get off planet? You think we get to the point where our humanity's eggs aren't in one planetary basket?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that we will. I think it's completely obvious that we will.
Yeah.
And Jelly thinks we will too. I think it's obvious that we will. I don't think that it's even, I look at it as being, I look at it as us just progressing normally like we would normally on Earth. Except we're leaving what we find normal, the planet. But really, that's not even like, we say that's our home and where we belong, but I really don't think so. I think the galaxy is where we belong. So if we're off of Earth, I don't think that it will be any different from the way we're normally progressing.
Yeah.
It'll just be, the same life carried on in a different location.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think a lot of scenarios people are imagining when they say no way, when they say we are going to destroy ourselves long before then, are scenarios that just push the timeline back. Like, there may be dark ages between now and when that we pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
A nuclear winter would kill almost all people.
Yeah.
I see those people that 0.1% of the globe that would survive as the seed of that civilization that will reach the stars. Maybe you push it back 1,000 years or something. But I do think that too. To me, it seems just as natural and just as in line with world history as I understand it. One question I was having too while you were saying that, and I know I have some friends who would bring this up, is, does it seem natural to us because we have been steeped in like a narrative of conquest and growth and expansion? And are we basically repeating the fallacies of like manifest destiny? When white people who came to North America had a narrative that just said, it's just in the plan. It's basically in nature's plan for Europeans to take over North America. And manifest destiny pulls us from the East Coast to the West Coast. And that is our culture. That is the root of our nation.
Yeah.
And are we just two white guys being like, yeah, of course it's human destiny to like to conquer, to grow, to expand, when someone else might be saying, well, like, what if it was our destiny to like learn how to live in balance and turn that technology towards Earth and towards our relationship with it?
Yeah.
And take ourselves to like, you know, the same 8 billion population that we have in 100 years, but with a radical level of enlightenment instead.
Right. Well, once you start bringing up the word destiny to me, I am like on the exact end of believing that destiny exists. I think that if we were to frickin' nuclear winter ourselves and we all got destroyed, you know, I'm going to say I don't think that it would be
wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that it would be wrong. I think that it would be the same, you know, destroying and creating. I think that, you know, no matter how big you put it or how small you put it, I think it's the same process. And, you know, this is something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years now and putting it in my head, because this was really something that I had a lot of troubles with. You know, I was like genuinely disturbed over these kinds of ideas. And I got it in my head where I don't think that it would be that different. I think it would be normal for that to happen. I think it would just be all within the same process. If we were to, and I get about the conquering thing. I think that conquering is in human nature. So, but I don't think that really plays like a huge, I don't think that really means much else other than recently for humans, we've been accustomed to, you know, going around the planet and settling and stuff like that. So yeah, sure. It seems normal in two ways. It seems normal because we're used to that idea, but in a bigger picture, the reason why I'm saying it seems normal is because of, you know, the larger scale idea that I just explained, that everything really follows the same process, no matter how big or small.
I agree. I can completely see all outcomes for humanity as a part of the same process. And I'm not pushing back on that. I think kind of, to me, the most interesting result of some of what you were saying is the question of, basically, if we were to destroy ourselves, I could see that as not wrong the same way you said it, as just a reflection of nature as it exists. But as someone who's kind of trying to daydream with some scientific thinking, if we destroyed ourselves and our nuclear winter didn't leave any survivors, for example, human survivors, the fundamental process wouldn't change, because there would still be life forms on the planet, and we could imagine in enough million years another intelligence to rise, in theory. But if that is the case, suddenly that thing's chances of not nuking itself into oblivion is like 50-50. And it's kind of like and maybe even worse, because it's like, well, in our one example it happened. So I feel like if that does happen, it's part of the same process, but it matters to me because it probably means that we're not the only intelligence that was unable to make it off planet.
Yeah.
That's just something that happens. And I feel like, honestly, the second we get we confirm, that two star systems are sending radio signals between each other, or the second we detect a Dyson sphere, or any type of really good evidence for extraterrestrial technology, it's kind of just like, oh, that means that we can get off planet too. It's kind of like the chances of this being possible just goes up so greatly. And if we don't make it, then the chances of it being possible go down so greatly. And so if, to me it's the same process, but I still have an emotional attachment to whether, intelligence is a needle in a haystack, or whether it's just like algae, fucking disgusting, like they're cockroaches, they're just everywhere, you can't stop that shit. I believe in the second. I want it to be the second. I don't want it to be like, man, out of 100 species that split the atom, 100 tend to destroy themselves. That is the same nature, but it bothers me more.
Yeah. Well, I would like to believe the second as well. I think that it would be nice if it was growing everywhere. I think it's growing everywhere on this planet too. We're just not, there's so many organisms on Earth that operate on a way more complicated scale than we know about. So I think that us, sitting here and saying that humans are like the greatest creature on Earth, I don't think that at all. I don't think we're the most special on Earth. We don't know nearly enough about the things that we live right next to even say that. But going back to the thing about it being normal that we both agreed on, it's just being under the same process. I think that idea, I believe in that idea, but I also don't. I think that it can be corrupted, because just because I'm saying that, oh yeah, if we nuclear bomb ourselves, if we destroy our species, yeah, it's part of the same whatever. Then, some people could take that as thinking that is not as serious anymore, and it's inevitable, or oh yeah, there's nothing we can do to, inevitable, or it's normal, or it's going to happen, or whatever. I think that we should do everything we can to prevent that from happening. Of course, because, using my logic, you can begin to go down the hole of nothing matters. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I do believe that in a way that's not like defined on Google about nothing matters.
Yeah.
Existentialism.
Yeah.
I am an existentialist, but not in the way that is like broadly defined. I think there's a couple different ways you can do it. Stuff still matters, but actually, it's hard to ground that idea. But yeah,
there's a Vietnamese Buddhist master named Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a really amazing thinker, and he has a book. I forget the title, but the whole book is basically provides a framework for kind of solving that problem. And what he says is that when you're talking about any form of truth, you need to be able to distinguish between the absolute and the relative. And the absolute is the macro vision. The absolute is a vision where it's all the same process. And there is nothing that could happen that would break that process. Mm-hmm. There is nothing that you can do to draw lines within that process. The universe is a boiling, unified singularity. And anything that you can point to that stands outside of that, well, I would just say, well, okay, then the dimension that includes both of those concepts, that's the absolute. And the relative is the smaller frame. It's the fact that our relationships do matter. It's the fact that, well, you can look at humans as just a thread in the tapestry of life, or you can also zoom in and you can look at humans in just the last 100,000 years. Mm-hmm. And the truths begin to shift as you change your landmarks to a shorter time frame, and you begin to understand that there are things that have relationships that matter within that oneness.
Right. And that the macro and the micro can,
totally
exist together.
And you need both. And we need both. And so many arguments are when one person's talking absolute, one person's talking relative, and they can't possibly come together.
Yeah.
Because those two different like conceptual levels weren't set up. And so that is how he, as a Buddhist, basically solves the dueling realizations that we are just dust, we are impermanent, and there is nothing about your life, your meaning, your relationships, or even the entire story of humanity that isn't just a fart in a windstorm of cosmic meaning. And how do you live as a living, conscious being and love and cooperate and build and steward all the things that keep us healthy and reflect what's miraculous about human beings?
Yeah.
And he basically says the first is the absolute, the latter is the relative. And basically you need both. You need both concepts to like accurately describe being alive.
Man, hell yeah. I wasn't expecting that answer. That's like someone solved it for us. Let's go. Is it a book?
It is a book. Let me see if I can find the
I want to freaking read that, because this is something that I've been like just that description
he is very
answered
easy.
A lot.
He is very easy to read. His writing is made for,
children.
well, that, for the simplest possible type of understanding.
Yeah.
It's not like reading like Western theology. All right, Thich Nhat Hanh, relative, absolute.
That's the name of the book, Relative Absolute.
That's what I Googled to find the name of the book.
Oh, gotcha.
Is it called The Two Truths? This should be easier to find.
That would make sense.
So he is an amazing figure. Actually, he may have recently died, and he interfaced with Martin Luther King, and he was kind of MLK's exposure to Buddhism, and they marched together and protested the Vietnam War together. And he's no joke.
Holy shit. Crazy.
We will find the name of the book and throw an image of the cover up at this point. I'm not gonna just surf Google at the time, but we'll put it in the pod for later. No.
I wanna freaking read that. That sounds awesome. I'm looking for a book to read.
It's slim.
Hell yeah. Speaking of information that is so easy to digest and just so much of it, have you watched any videos from the channel Vox?
No.
Dude, they do the best videos. It's just stuff that I want to know. Like, I think I actually may have said something about it to you. Like, the conflict in the Middle East and how complicated that is. It's in a 10-minute video. They got dates, names, the guy's funny, super fast, tons of information. And, I understood, like, the whole timeline. Of course, I couldn't repeat it back to you right now, but I understood the whole timeline. Like, right then, I was like, dude, I'm so glad that I know this. Started going on their other videos, and it's insane. That's, like, the best way to educate, is just fun and quick and engaging, and visuals, well, at least for me, really help. Like, seeing the freaking bouncy line going over another country and a dude's head popping up, and
yes.
like I get that stuff really fast. So I love Vox. Check out Vox if you have not seen their videos.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Fun stuff.
That's a lot of my YouTube stuff lately, is like infotainment.
Yeah. Your videos are kind of like that. Your new videos are amazing. I'm going to talk about your new videos. The one that you posted today is beyond impressive with the ghillie suit. And the video that you posted a week ago, I wrote you a huge essay, but dude, work of art. Like, literally, when I said submit that to Vice or something, or Vox, I wasn't kidding. if that was filmed with like super expensive cameras and whatever clear, I mean, your cinematography was amazing. But if it was clear, dude, freaking coyote hunting, animal tracking in downtown LA, dude, it would do so well.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, amazing video, dude.
It's getting fun, and you know, I have you to thank for getting me on the YouTube grind, but it's definitely, you know, beginning to rival Twitch for like how many brain cells, you know, it's getting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can just show off your skills so much harder than you can on Twitch.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it, and yeah, man, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
All right, I think that should be our episode this week.
Hell yeah, that was fun.
Pretty badass 55 minutes, I thought.
Yeah, let's go. Thanks everybody for watching. We will be back. You think maybe we'll do another video before Monday?
No, because this week's kind of crazy for me, but I think
all right, I'll go.
I think that what we should do this week is work out what the schedule will be for 2 a week and then start that.
Hell yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming back in, and hopefully you enjoyed.
Peace.
Later. Yeah, maybe we start doing that.